My ex-wife stole all the money from my parents' safe and then made me apologize on my knees for the broken marriage because I'm Ann. Ex's ex-girlfriend stole $2,500 from his parents' safe and turned the whole family against our son. Now I'm helping my kid recover after they all chose a criminal over him. This situation is long and messy, so I'll try to include the relevant info only. I, 33F, broke up with my longtime partner, 34M, right before the pandemic. We stayed in the same house during lockdown and continued to live together afterward because we generally get along and had a child, 12M, to raise together. Over the last 4 years, we've been roommates and co-parents, and that's it. One day he was supposed to take our son to buy new school clothes. He came back 15 minutes later in tears, saying they were on their way to the store when his new girlfriend called, and he drove him back home to spend time with her. He even asked our son to lie to me for him, but he was tired of covering for him, implying he'd been lying for a while. When he got home, we had a massive argument. I didn't care if he dated other girls. I cared that he thought he had to sneak around and act like a jerk to me and our son. I told him if he had been a man about this new girl and just introduced me to her, maybe we could have all been friends. But instead, he had to act like a deceitful teenager. It ended with him moving out to live with his parents. A couple of days later, he called and apologized. He said he hoped it wasn't too late for him to do things right and hoped we could all be friends. I was hopeful we could finally co-parent in peace for our child's sake. This is where I might be wrong. I've always been close with my ex's parents, to the point where even after we broke up, I would be invited over regularly for dinner. They said even if I wasn't their son's partner, I was still their grandchild's mother, and that made me family. One day, my son texted me while at my ex's parents' house and invited me to dinner because they were having my favorite meal. I didn't think twice about coming over, even though my ex and his new girlfriend, whom I've never met, now live there. I figured everyone had to be okay with it since my son was inviting me. I ended up having dinner with my ex's parents and son, but my ex only came upstairs to grab 2 plates of food and went back downstairs. I asked my ex's mom why, and she said his girlfriend doesn't feel well today. Whatever. I thought she was just sick, and I'd meet her another day. I had a perfectly pleasant dinner with my ex-in-laws, helped clean up, and promised to bring them a coconut cake, my ex-father-in-law's favorite, and took my son home. Later, my ex blew up my phone with texts and calls saying it was weird and rude that I came over for dinner uninvited, that I made his new girlfriend uncomfortable and feel unwelcome, and that I caused trouble in their relationship because she assumed we must still be in love for me to come over and see his parents out of the blue like that. Exes don't do that. It's creepy. I had a talk with my son and asked him calmly if he had asked everyone else if it was okay if I came over before he texted me, and he sheepishly said he didn't know he had to ask, since it had never been a problem before. I didn't tell him about his dad's meltdown at me, or tell his dad that he was the one who invited me. He's a child and shouldn't be involved. Instead, I just told his dad that I was sorry my dropping by made things awkward, but I thought he wanted us all to be friends from now on, and I figured this was a good place to start. He said there was no way his new girlfriend would want to be friends with me now. Way she'd want to be my friend now that I made her feel uncomfortable in her own home. It wasn't my intention, but I admit I'd be perturbed if he brought this woman into my home. Hey all, I saw a post here recently about not getting many updates to stories submitted to this blog and figured I could give mine, even though it's a sad one. I also need to vent a little about this situation. Under the cut to save people's dashboards, my ex's new girlfriend will be Lisa, my ex-father-in-law will be Jack, and my ex-mother-in-law will be Mary. I'll start from the day after the dinner and give a concise recap of events. The day after the dinner, I brought Jack the coconut cake I promised, but not wanting to stir up trouble, I texted that I was bringing it over instead of dropping by unannounced like I normally would. Jack met me on the porch instead of inviting me in like he normally would, and I gathered from his distant but polite tone and body language that he was basically shooing me away. I was hurt that a man who had always treated me like a daughter was being cold, but I didn't say anything about it, and left. Over the next couple of weeks, my ex-in-laws continued to hold me at arm's length. Once I would consider them not only family but close friends. I used to take Mary to doctor's appointments and shopping trips, but texts asking her about her next appointment or inviting her to come shopping with me went unanswered. I used to go fishing and go-karting with Jack, but those invites also stopped. I had a sneaking suspicion my ex was behind the sudden change in my ex-in-laws, and I also started to notice a change in my son. Because my ex and I were never actually married, there was no formal custody agreement between us. He would just text his dad if he wanted him to come pick him up or text me if he wanted to come home. He's always been a daddy's boy, and spent more time with him than at home with me, and I was fine with that. But after the dinner, he spent a lot more time at home with me, and one day he went with his dad only to call me within the hour, crying and asking me to pick him up. On the way home, I gently reminded him that he could talk to me about anything, even if it was hard. Adjusting to his dad having Lisa in his life would be a challenge, but if he had any problems, he could tell me, and I would help him fix them. He told me what had transpired over my ex and Lisa's relationship from his point of view. My ex and Lisa had been dating for about 8 months before my son told me, and he pretty much knew about it from the beginning. My ex told him he couldn't tell me about it, and he agreed because he didn't want us to fight. My ex also had Lisa around my son from the beginning, and my son was wary of her at first, but started to like her. So the people saying I should meet Lisa before she was around my son, that ship unfortunately sailed long ago. The day after the dinner, Mary texted my son and basically said, "You're not in any trouble, but don't mention your mom around Lisa again." My son texted back asking why, and she said, "It's just easier not to upset her." Lisa started doing all the things with my ex-in-laws that I used to do. She took Mary to doctor's appointments, took her shopping, went fishing with Jack, and even tried to replicate my coconut cake. My son tried talking to his dad and said it felt like Lisa was trying to replace me. But my dad just said, "She's just being their daughter-in-law. Your mother isn't their daughter-in-law anymore." Still, my son is stubborn and insisted it wasn't fair that his mother was being excluded from the family. Her dad just kept repeating, "She's not family," to which my son yelled, "She's my mom. That makes her more family than Lisa." At this, Lisa apparently got up and left the room while my ex ran after her. Lisa didn't just leave the room, though. She took her keys, got in her car, and drove away. My ex drove after her, and Mary and Jack started scolding my son, saying he needed to apologize to Lisa when she got back. That's when my son called me in tears and asked me to come pick him up. He's insistent that he doesn't want to go back over there until they all apologize to him, and I don't blame him. I'm honestly at a loss at all this. My ex never had a problem with me being close with his parents even though we were broken up. Hell, I was the one who stayed with Mary in the hospital for 4 months after she had a heart attack and subsequent heart surgery in 2022. I was the one who went to doctor's appointments, organized her medications, and helped her with physical therapy. I was the one cooking meals every night and bringing them to Jack, because both he and my ex have been spoiled by Mary and don't know how to cook for themselves. I was the one cleaning the house for them for over a year while Mary recovered. I did it all because I loved them, not just as his family, but as dear friends. I don't know if this sudden change in behavior is how my ex felt all along, or if Lisa had something to do with it, though I suspect it's a combination of both. My ex is weaponized incompetence down to an art form, and I suspect now that he has a replacement woman to take care of him and his aging parents, he no longer needs me to do it. But that's basically all that's happened over the last month. Radio silence for me from people I used to love dearly, and I'm pushing my son away till he ran home in tears. As sad as I am for me, my heart breaks tenfold for him. I honestly did not think I would be updating this post any longer. In the last couple of months, I've gotten a lawyer and have been working out custody with my ex, which was rough at first, but then calmed down. I don't want to go into too many details because this situation doesn't really involve me anymore, just my ex, and he is still my son's father. So I'll give the short version. When my ex was contacted by my lawyer, he started blowing up my phone saying I was trying to take his son and all his money away from him, and how could I do this to him because he would never do this to me, etc., etc. I shut that down quick and told him I didn't want a dime from him. I just wanted some assurance that the agreement we already had in place, VJ's son stays with me, but is free to visit him. VJ stays in place. He kept trying to say lawyers were unnecessary because he wasn't going to try to take him. I stuck to my guns, and he eventually caved. Meanwhile, I had my own things to sort through, and so did my son. It took a while to fully own the fact that I definitely contributed to the pain he's now feeling. When I broke up with my ex, I comforted him by telling him nothing would change. We were still living together. Then his dad moved out. And still, I told him nothing would change. I'd still be active in Jack and Mary's lives. I'd still go over there with him all the time. And while that was a nice thought, it didn't really prepare my son for the reality that families change all the time, and change doesn't have to be bad or scary. This whole time, he was basing his mental health on the idea that nothing about his family would change. So Lisa's introduction slowly shattered. That feeling started to crumble away. That feeling. But change is good. Change is normal. I may not like being cut off from Jack and Mary, but they're not wrong when they say I'm not family anymore. They're not wrong for trying to be welcoming to the new woman in their son's life. It sucks, but life goes on. Anyway, my son has been going over there for a few hours about once or twice a week with lots of caveats that he, his dad, and I all agreed to. He gets to decide when he comes over. His dad can invite him, but he's allowed to say no, and he can't argue. No one will force him to interact with Jack, Mary, or Lisa if he doesn't want to. No one will take him anywhere if he doesn't want to go. If anyone makes him uncomfortable, he'll leave and walk to Diane's house and call me to come pick him up. Diane is a co-worker of mine who lives 3 blocks away and has known my son since he was a baby. This arrangement has been working out, and my son has said everyone has been extra nice to him, but they haven't actually apologized for anything they did. He slowly started to seem happier and happier over there, and asked if he could go to Jack's birthday party because his aunt and uncle from out of state would be visiting with their cousins, and I said yes. Well, tonight he came home and told me a doozy of a story. The party was great, everyone was having a good time, and my son's older cousin was showing him how to play the Nintendo 64. Lisa was nowhere to be found. Apparently she didn't feel good again, and my ex went downstairs to check on her. Suddenly they hear him screaming, "Where is it? What did you do with it?" Everyone got quiet and looked to the stairs where my ex stomped up and said everyone had to turn out their pockets because some money was missing from Jack and Mary's safe. For some context, this safe is locked under the stairs and needs a key and combination to get into it. It has important documents for the whole family and emergency cash in it. Jack, Mary, my ex, and now Lisa are the only ones who know the combination, and the only key is hidden in Jack and Mary's room. My ex went downstairs to check on Lisa, and she was asleep in bed, but the door to the cupboard under the stairs was open. He got a bad feeling and checked the safe, and about $2,500 was missing. He woke Lisa up, and she cried and said she had been asleep the whole time, and someone must have come down and stolen the money while she was sleeping. I was pretty gratified to hear that my ex's family are nowhere near as naive as he is, and immediately tore into him for believing that lie. None of them had a key or knew the combination, and all of them had been hanging out in the living room. Lisa cleans Jack and Mary's room all the time and knew where the key was. He told Lisa the combination, and Lisa was downstairs the whole time. Lisa is the only person who could have done it. He tried to defend Lisa and told everyone to leave her alone, but Jack put his foot down and told his son to find the money or he would call the cops. My ex went back downstairs to talk to Lisa, and everyone upstairs could hear her sobbing and calling him names. She went to get in her car, and my ex followed her, and what did he see sitting in her back seat? A bag stuffed to the brim with money, a bag that wasn't there a few hours ago. My ex tried to stop Lisa from leaving, but she tore out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. Jack and Mary are furious and want to press charges, and my ex is begging them not to, saying he can get her to bring it back. I'd quit This Is Going to Go Next, but honestly, I'm just kind of glad Lisa and my ex didn't take me up on my original offer to be friends. After the party, I didn't press my son to tell me any more about the Lisa situation in case he didn't want to talk about it, but he shared with me on his own that my ex found her the next day. She had only spent $70 of it, which she paid back. and he returned the money to Jack and Mary, who decided not to press charges. Lisa was not allowed back in Jack and Mary's house after that, so she and my ex broke up almost a week later. On November 25th, 2023, I got a call from Mary, the first one I had gotten from her since July. She started out by apologizing for not talking to me in so long and invited me over. This time I did ask who was going to be there, and she said it was just her and Jack in the house. My ex was at work. I said I wasn't sure if I should come over if it would be upsetting for my ex, and she said, "To hell with him, it's my house, and I invited you." So I went over that evening. Jack was glued to the TV and just nodded at me when I came in. Mary led me into the kitchen to talk privately. This time she apologized for being so distant and said it was my ex's idea that she and Jack cut all ties with me. I asked where he got the idea since it was never a problem before, and she said he didn't want to upset Lisa. She said walking on eggshells to not upset Lisa was apparently a common occurrence while she was living there. Lisa could be perfectly sweet and friendly, but the second you did anything to step on her toes, she would get in her car, leave, and swear she was never coming back. In fact, she told me a great deal of things I didn't know about Lisa and that my son was too young to notice. For instance, things I now know about Lisa. Lisa is 51, as I mentioned before on this blog, and has 3 grown children. She was living with her oldest son when she met my ex, but after about 10 months of them dating, her son kicked her out and she had nowhere to stay, so she moved in with Jack and Mary and my ex. Why? She's a drug user. Mary knows Lisa was on drugs because she admitted it to Jack. Jack is a retired cop and noticed strange behavior from Lisa, like sudden bursts of energy followed by collapsing in a dead sleep, mood swings, irritability, and coming and going at odd hours of the night, etc. Jack confronted both her and my ex with this information, and they admitted she was addicted to drugs but insisted she was getting treatment for it. Apparently that's actually how Lisa and my ex met. My ex is a recovered alcoholic, which was never brought up until now because it wasn't relevant to the situation until now. It was really bad when we were young, but I assumed he had been sober since 2018. Unbeknownst to me, he had slipped back into his drinking habit sometime in early 2023 when we were still living together. I was there for him when he was at his worst and can say with 100% certainty he wasn't acting as bad as he was back then. But he did stay out late a lot and always seemed tired. I just assumed he was working late, hanging out with friends or hooking up with women. We weren't a couple at that point, and I felt it wasn't any of my business what he spent his nights doing as long as it didn't affect our son, and at that point, I didn't believe it was. Fortunately, he realized on his own he needed to stop before he spiraled too far out of control and recognized he could not stop on his own. He joined a local drug and alcohol addiction program, and that's where he met Lisa. They were in different programs, but those programs were in the same building. They ran into each other by chance, hit it off, and started dating. Apparently, my ex even confessed to trying Lisa's drug of choice but swore up and down he was a recreational user only and wasn't addicted. Mary and Jack said Lisa could only stay with them if Lisa continued treatment and any and all drug usage in their house stopped. And my ex and Lisa agreed. Then the party happened, and Mary clarified a few things about that for me. What happened at the party was this. When my ex went downstairs to check on Lisa, he could tell she had been taking drugs, so he went to tuck her into bed. To get to their bedroom, you have to walk by the stairs, and he noticed the door leading under the stairs was open just a crack when usually it's latched shut. He put Lisa in bed, went to check it out, and didn't see anything wrong. But he didn't trust it, and opened the safe just to check. At this point, I interrupted and asked why Lisa even knew the combination. And Mary just said my ex claimed she needed to know it in case of an emergency, and she was stupid to agree to that. They usually keep $9,000 in cash in the safe for emergencies, but my ex counted it twice and was sure $2,100 was missing. My ex freaked out, shook Lisa, and shouted at her, asking where it went. She said she didn't take it. He came back up to accuse the rest of the family. He lied and said Lisa was sleeping the whole time to avoid mentioning she had taken drugs in his parents' house, but couldn't keep denying Lisa had to have done it when everyone else kept telling him that she was the only one who could have. He went back downstairs to confront her. She yelled that he scared her when he shook her and screamed in her face for no reason. He told her she was the only one who could have taken it. She kept denying it, and he kept pushing, so she got her bag, stuffed a few clothes inside, and went out the back door to her car. She threw the bag in the back seat so hard the stuff inside spilled out, and my ex saw several stacks of money rubber-banded together just like the money in the safe. He tried to open the car door, but she had already locked it and sped out of the driveway. The next day, he found her in her car in the parking lot of her oldest son's apartment building. She had asked if she could stay there with him. He said no, so she spent the night in her car. She cried and said she hadn't been to her treatment program in weeks, and now she needed money to pay some people back, and she was scared. My ex said he didn't care. Give him back the money. She gave him back all but $60 that she had spent. He said she needed to pay him back in a week, or he'd call the cops on her. And a few hours later she did. She also came with her daughter to pick up the rest of her things from Jack and Mary's house just a couple of days before Mary called me. What happened next leading up to Thanksgiving? Both Jack and Mary kept in touch with me almost to the point they had preempted me, and I was cordial and polite with them, but kept my distance. Mary even tried dropping hints that she wanted me to come clean the house for them at one point, and I just directed her to the number for a cleaning service, quite proud of myself for that one. However, my son stayed in close contact with them and held out hopes that I was going to go over there for Thanksgiving like I did every year. I tried gently reminding him that it might be awkward for everyone, and he just insisted it wouldn't be awkward because Lisa's gone now, and besides, if I didn't go to Jack and Mary's house, I would be alone on Thanksgiving. My only living family are on the other side of the country, and we are not close at all. And according to my son, that was unacceptable. Then it happened. On Thanksgiving Eve, my ex texted me that he needed to talk to me and my son. Came over to tell us he was getting back together with Lisa. Lisa's back, he said. He'd been talking to her, and she said she was sorry about taking the money. Her plan was to use it to pay back some bad people who had been scaring her and then replace it before anyone noticed it was gone. He believed she really was sorry and really would do better, and he wanted to be with her again and give her a chance to prove she could change. I didn't say anything, but my son, bless his heart, just said, "You really bought all that?" My ex looked annoyed at his tone but continued and said he was there to invite him out to dinner with him and Lisa because Lisa had already apologized to Mary and Jack and wanted the chance to apologize to him too. My son was quiet and looked uncomfortable, so I told him he could make whatever choice felt right and I would support him. To his credit, my ex did too, and said if he didn't want to be around Lisa, he wouldn't make him. He ended up saying he didn't want to go to dinner right then, but maybe later he would change his mind. Then he brought up Christmas and asked if I could still come over, and my ex's face fell. He said he doesn't think Lisa would be comfortable with me coming over. My son lost it at this, and so did I, but just internally. She already proved she would steal from the family at a social gathering less than a month ago. She hasn't done anything to make up for that yet, but she gets to go to Christmas. And I don't? My ex just said it was already decided that Lisa would be there for Christmas, and my son throwing a tantrum over it wouldn't change it. After he and my son exchanged some more heated words, he left. I tried telling my son, I am absolutely 100% fine not being invited to Christmas, that he should still go if he wants to, because it would make me sad if he felt like he has to pick me over the rest of his family. I told him if he can't forgive his dad yet, he should still go to see his cousins and aunt and uncle, and he can ignore him the whole time if he wants. It took a while, but he eventually agreed he still wanted to go. That is until he started getting texts. The texts. First, Mary texted my son saying she was disappointed in him for causing drama on Christmas Eve, and how everyone else has agreed to suck it up and be nice to Lisa for Christmas, and he should too. While he was showing me the text with tears in his eyes, he got another one from his aunt that said, "Shame on you. I can't believe the way you've been talking to your father." This sent my son down a spiral. He realized his dad had been talking about him to the rest of the family and probably twisting the situation to make him look bad. Her, a 12-year-old boy, y'all. I know I've made a lot of mistakes in this situation. I know I've been naive, but I feel like I've been a saint going out of my way to make sure my son doesn't resent his dad for any of this. I've been telling him over and over again that he's his dad and he loves him and he wants what's best for him, but this... I can't talk him out of this. I don't know where to begin. He begs me not to make him go over there for Christmas because he doesn't want to face his whole family not knowing what his dad has told them about him. I told him of course he doesn't have to. I text my ex that our son doesn't feel safe going over there for Christmas anymore, and my phone stays silent, but my son's phone blows up. He ended up blocking most of his family to get them to stop texting him and cried himself to sleep. Since then, I have not tried to get my son to contact his dad since October 26, 2022. He's called him a few times since then, and he mostly just answers with short 1 or 2 word answers. He doesn't go places with him anymore. He doesn't want to see him anymore. He has called me a few times to accuse me of turning his son against him. But it's pretty easy to shut him down with, "Would you want to talk to someone who turns everything you say against you to your own family?" I'm sure he's told his family a whole slew of colorful things about me, but I don't care. And none of them have reached out to me with vitriol. Just imagine that. An 11-year-old child. I don't know what's going on with Lisa or Mary or Jack anymore, and I don't care. I'm just focused on trying to bring my son back to that loud, boisterous, stubborn kid he used to be. And I think we're getting there slowly. Therapy is helping him, and I'm so glad I got the custody arrangement when I did.